Well, it's been a few years since the three of us got together before the camera. As you recall, back in 2020, during the COVID pandemic, we got together in hope of bringing some hope in the midst of the turmoil of the pandemic. A few years has passed since, and a lot had changed naturally. Personally, I've gained about 15 pounds. What about you, Father Miguel? Anything new going on at the
I lost
cathedral?
30.
You lost 30.
Don't lie. Don't stop
Sorry.
lying.
I just, want to take advantage of that line.
What about you, Bishop? Anything new going on?
I've lost weight, I've lost hair, and I've lost, what can I say, energy, and even patience, Really, I kind of can't put up with it anymore,
Oh, my goodness.
I'm
And I have to
grouchy.
say, the good bishop is here under a bit of duress.
Yes.
Because he's not someone who really is interested in a lot of attention on him. But recently, you turned 75, and that is a significant milestone. What's so important about the milestone of the age of 75, Bishop?
Well, 75 for Bishop, it's kind of a milestone, as you said, because that's the day, or we're supposed to be, you're supposed to send your letter to the Holy Father announcing that you will be 75 and that you're open to be removed and retired. So I wrote my letter joyfully and thankfully, but I haven't heard back yet. I'm waiting.
That's true. Just because we submit a letter of resignation at the age of 75, that does not mean that the Holy Father would accept it immediately.
So it's not over yet.
Oh,
Not
I know.
quite
That's-
yet.
Not quite yet. So if it's not over yet, what can you do and what you should not be doing in this transition period?
I shouldn't be sitting here talking to you. That's first. But
Write it down.
Write it down.
what I should be doing is just doing what I do every day. You still do the same things every day. You take care of the people, you do confirmations, you do ordinations, you say Mass, you pray. There are things you'd like to do, but you just don't have time to do them, and I look forward to doing that.
Father Miguel and I have known you for quite some time. Father Miguel was your student when you were the rector, or the vice rector of the seminary.
The Dean of Students.
The dean of students.
In charge of discipline.
Yeah. And that was painful.
That was painful.
It wore me out.
I was privileged to be there when the announcement was made that you were coming to Orlando. So it's been over 15 years.
Wow.
Now, no one born a bishop. Obviously, you had a history, you had a childhood, and so why don't we focus a little bit on that? The man, John Noonan, before he was a priest, before he was a bishop.
Now, I'm 75. I can't remember everything,
Oh, that
Do we
is
have
the
to go into
excuse.
the archives and get all this stuff
Oh,
out?
no. No, I was born in Ireland. You all know that. I was born in 1951, February. It was a cold morning. I think it was 8:45 in the morning. I can remember that much anyway. But it was a very unusual time in Ireland. It was right after the war. Things had changed. And where I lived in Limerick, a lot of people who lived there were from different parts of the world, believe it or not. Because at that stage, the airport, which was called Shannon Airport, was the connection with the United States. So when planes flew across the Atlantic, they had to refuel in Ireland before they could go on to Paris or Germany or England. So I grew up with a lot of different people, different nationalities. Dutch. The first language I spoke, I was told, was Dutch. When I was growing up, there was a family living close by, and they used to take me out as, when I was what can I say, I was 1 or 2 years old when you start talking. And of course, the only words I remember were Dutch because I spent so much time with these. So that was a kind of a treat that when I found that out. But that was my neighborhood, people going to school. There were Irish people, German people. They were all from the different airlines that lived close by. We all kind of went to school together.
And how about your faith journey in terms of Limerick and being with family, friends from different countries and all that? How did that shape your faith?
Well, unfortunately in Ireland, you're automatically Catholic. Everybody's Catholic, so everybody does the same. So you didn't take much notice of your faith, You did the usual things. You went to Catholic school because there was only schools that were there, elementary school. You made your first communion, you did your confirmation, and you went to school, you know. The only difference, I think, was when I was 12, I was sent to a boarding school. That was interesting. A boarding school is where you go from 12 to 18, you know, it was a very interesting time. There were about 400 of us boys, and I don't know how many priests were there, but there was at least 20 or 30 Jesuits, mostly priests teaching us. So we're there 24 hours a day. We used to say we had 15 minutes to ourselves every day. That's all the time you were free. You had your day was so programmed. You got up in the morning, you washed your face, or when you got older, you had to shave, and then you had to get downstairs for morning prayer and mass. Then you had to come have breakfast, and then after breakfast, you had study hour. Then you had class. Class was over, you had a break. You went to lunch. After lunch, you went back to class. After class was over, you went out and you had sports. Went to bed at 11, got up again the next morning at 6:45.
My goodness, and we thought seminary was
Oh,
hard.
yes. That's why I didn't have any mercy on you guys. You had it easy. You had it all easy.
Now, I have to ask, is it John, Johnny, or Jack?
No, I was always called John because my father was Jack.
I see. What was the young John like?
Oh, that's terrible. I don't think I can remember that. Some of it was fun, some of it wasn't so fun, but there were always good things happening. You grew up with a lot of friends, you know, because everybody knew one another. You grew up with neighbors, you did different things together. But when I went to high school, when I went to boarding school, it was different. You had different friends because they were from all over the country. We even had kids that were parents went to that, their fathers went to that school, but they were from the United States, and they were like going through culture shock, coming to Ireland where you didn't have television. We had one television in the whole school, and you could watch it for 15 minutes a day. It was kind of crazy. The rest of the time you either played ping pong or you played pool. There were the two things, but you didn't have much time to do any of those.
Not even time to be mischievous?
Well, you know, I don't, you know, I have to answer that question.
That's deniability, Father.
That's right.
But there was a lot of fun. You had a little cubicle, and every night you had to put your shoes out to make sure they were shined and clean. So we learned the tricks of the trade. You put your new shoes out, and you kept your old shoes in, so you didn't have to clean your shoes every day, you know. Your bed had to be made every morning before you went down for morning prayer, and that was easy to do. You know, made sure you got a puffy blanket that made it look like it was nice and neat, so you didn't have, you know. So those are the tricks of the trade, you know. But it was a wonderful time. You lived in a dorm, and there were always two priests on the dorm. They had their own rooms. But once a month, they would take you in and talk to you about, you know, school and your family. You had to write a letter every week to your parents, and they would talk to you about, you know, what's going on and what are you doing. And they were very encouraging. But like, you know, when you're a kid, you sometimes don't appreciate it.
What were you most grateful for from that time of your childhood?
I think, you know, even all the priests, how much they loved us. They didn't show it, but they, you know, they really cared for us. They poured their heart and soul into our lives, and we didn't appreciate it at the time, you know. But wonderful, wonderful people. We had one guy called Snitch. We called him Snitch because he used to keep bees. And one day he he taught us English. He came into class, and he had been stung by a bee. So he kept doing this. So we called him Snitch, you know, the nickname. Half the time I have to go back and remember the names of the priests because you wouldn't remember them.
Now, you and I share something in common. Both of us came to the States in our teens. So what inspired the decision to move to the United States?
Well, it was kind of idealistic. I grew up on a farm, and, you know, you were always worried about things. And one thing that always caught my mind was I wanted to do something to help people and help farmers especially, because we had a brucellosis, which was an infection that affected cattle. And if your cattle got infected, you had to destroy all your cattle. And that always worried me, because I always remember I went out one day with my uncle, and he was in the field, and he came in and he was just looking out. It was a beautiful summer's evening, you know, it was about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and it was still bright. And he was looking at the field of all these cows, and he said, you know, in a kind of a very, I don't know, I must have been 14 or 15. He said, you know, John, if I lose my cows, I won't know what to do. He was lamenting because his neighbor had been, they had tested him and his cattle had brucellosis and all the cows had to go to be slaughtered. So it kind of said, I'd like to do something to help farmers. So that was the first thing. You could go to school in Ireland, but America was the place for science. Everybody wanted to go to America. You could do great things and discover great things.
Did you experience any cultural shock?
When I first came to the United States, it was wonderful because I went to college, Fordham, and it was during, the early 70s where there were a lot of, protests at high school and protests at colleges. And I was like, I came from a high school where you wouldn't step out of line, and here are these people going around standing up in class and protesting, and it was like, freedom of speech was like something totally foreign to me. But anyway, it was a learning period, It was crazy, but I kind of didn't lose it, but I was kind of saying, I don't know if I want to be here, This is not really what I want to do, protesting and, I want to learn. So that was it.
So the first time that you thought of a possible vocation to the priesthood, was it in Ireland growing up, or was it across the pond when you got to the United States?
Oh, it was when I got to the United States. When I came here, I first went to church, and it was like, oh my gosh, church was alive. There was music. There were people involved. There was a kind of like, I went to church in Ireland. It was very nice. You went to church and you knew everybody there because they were your neighbors. But there was no kind of, Mass was over in 20 minutes on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. You go here and my gosh, there were, the homilies were, wow, that's interesting. And there was music. Now the music was kind of like, in that period of time, there was, Vatican II was beginning to take, fold, and we had all sorts of crazy music. Entrance hymn was like the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Pop songs, which I had never, the only hymns I ever sang were in Latin, most of the time.
I think each of us has one of those decisive moments when we know that this is it. Right? I think, Father Miguel, I remember the experience with that family that lost their child was forever impacted you, and it brought you back to that desire to become a priest. How about you, Bishop? Did you have a decisive moment when you feel like this is what I wanted to do?
Well, I graduated, came to Florida. I got a job in Florida. I was working, with this equine infectious anemia, which is kind of like a brucellosis sort of thing. You were trying to help disease that affected horses. So, and because then I was in a parish, in West Palm Beach, and, I got to know priests. It so happened a lot of priests in Florida in the 70s were from Ireland. And they knew me, and it was kind of unusual to know somebody from Ireland. Some of them were like me. We had a lot in common. So then they would ask me to help out. They were doing retreats, high school retreats. I started doing high school retreats. But during that time, I had to give talks. And there were skits. You had to do everything. This is like totally new to me because the only thing we did when I was in high school was we did plays or we did musicals. You weren't into doing fun things that you could normally do. So, you learned the culture of high school kids and you had fun with them. And I loved doing it. Most of the priests knew me, and they would ask me to go to Fort Lauderdale. They asked me to go to Miami. They were going all over the place on a weekend, so I never had a weekend free. We'd sit after about 10 or 11 o'clock at night in a Howard Johnson's and have coffee and talk. And they would always say to me, John, ever think about becoming a priest? I always said, I've been there, done that, I'm finished. I went to a high school and said, you should think about it. So this went on for a while, and after about a year, I remember one guy said to me, I know we asked you this before, but, do you like doing what you're doing? I said, oh, I love this. This is great work. Well, why don't you do it full time? I said, well, you don't pay me. And they said, no, we're talking about becoming a priest. I said, I told you, I've been there, done that. And the guy said to me then, well, you're getting too old for it. You better make up your mind soon. And he kind of put it like the way he said it, he made me mad because he said, you're getting too old. So I kind of got a little annoyed, and then I talked to the Lord about it, and I said, Lord, maybe I should think about it. No, maybe I should. So there was a kind of a give and take. And then ironically, one of them said to me, I'd like you to go on a cursillo. So I went on a cursillo. And if you go in a Cursillo, you will spend time with the Lord and you will make a lot of decisions about your life. And went on the Cursillo. I'll never forget it. They gave me things. They gave me my tennis racket. They say, you'll have plenty of time to play tennis and really enjoy yourself. I was so mad because you had no time to do anything. So that kind of even helped me, because that kind of, you know, here am I wrestling with my life and I'm saying, I came here to enjoy myself and I can't even play tennis. And everybody's asking me questions and telling me I should think about my future and telling me, you know, you'd make a good priest. And it wasn't until probably, I think it was a Saturday night, I think you have confession, and that kind of probably hit me. Sure. So that was the beginning of the end. I said, well, I guess, Lord, I better cooperate a little, and if it's to work, it'll work.
This question is for both of you, in fact. So I'm considered a lifer. So I joined a seminary at the age of 17, straight out of high school, and went all the way through until now, just celebrate my 10th year anniversary. Father Miguel, I knew you began right after high school. You left.
40 years ago.
Oh my. Talking about old.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, you went to the seminary after high school, you left and worked for a little while, and then you came back.
Yeah, but tell him, what did he work at?
Oh, we'll get there.
Oh, okay, okay.
And
I
then
just wanted
for
you to know.
the bishop came, went to college, had a job, had a professional life, and then made a decision to join the seminary. So basically, we're a part of the entire spectrum here. Nowadays, I think young people of my generation, the millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, all of these different alphabets here, there's one thing that defines us quite a bit, that is a fear of missing out, right? FOMO, a fear of commitment. And finding a direction in life is not very easy. So what advice would you give to a young person who is trying to find meaning in their life, who's trying to find a direction? What advice would you give them? And then just go a little deeper for those young men and women who perhaps feeling this inkling of vocation. What advice would you give them? Father Miguel?
Well, I think they have to be very honest with themselves to begin with, to take a look at, at their own lives and be able to enter into a serious discernment of what is it that God is calling me to do? What do I want to do with my life? But more importantly, what does He want me to do with my life? And be able to be bold and courageous in taking risks to discover whether or not. And this is what happened to me in my own life. I needed to step out. I was still a little immature, and can you give witness to that?
Oh, yeah.
And I realized, I needed some time, and the formation team also was very much in one accord in terms of that opportunity for me to grow and to step out, and I did. I was, still in a battle with myself, but I went and sought refuge in another career that was always a passion of mine. It's communications, radio, and all that. So then I got a job as a DJ. But even there, even though I was totally disconnected, somehow the Lord managed to sneak in. And it was through that witness of that family and a radio listener that I was able to once again connect with the vocation that I had put in pause, And of course, at that moment, I was working here in Central Florida. So the decision was, do I go back to Miami and apply again to Miami, or do I apply in Orlando? And I felt that because of the growth of the city and the area, especially the need for bilingual priests, I felt that, maybe this is what God is calling me to enter here, because Miami had a lot of bilingual priests and many gifted multicultural priests down there. So then I felt that, this was the place. And here I am, 28 years as a priest.
How about you, Bishop? What advice would you give as a young person trying to find a direction nowadays?
Today is so different, but I was first, I said, be not afraid to kind of just, listen to your heart. Because sometimes we're always afraid because we're not sure what we want to do, and we're busy. But you have to kind of take it easy. It's a prayerful experience, but you have to let the Lord help you, and not to be afraid to spend the time with the Lord. And that's kind of like for everybody. It's not just for somebody discerning priesthood, but discerning your whole life. Just not be afraid.
And that's why I feel that the young adults that have come to the church are searching for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we have been able to witness such an incredible growth in numbers, particularly that population, is because they're seeking truth that out there is not being offered, but also a sense of community, that sense of belonging to a community that also shares the same aspirations and dreams and also a relationship with God. And I think that that's key. Even we see that with our diocese this year, the many men that have applied that want to come into the seminary and enter into a formation journey is part of that generation.
Life is difficult, it's challenging, but priesthood is one of those moments where you don't realize what's happening. But what you realize eventually is the Lord is using you. And He's using you in such a powerful way that it's so fulfilling then, because you're doing nothing but goodness. Even in the most difficult moments, it's goodness.
I think one of the things that you two said that resonate the most with me, one of the things that define my generations and the world nowadays is anxiety. People find themselves being very anxious. And internal struggles is something that they don't realize that everybody went through. You went through it. And it's okay to feel that internal struggles. But certainly, listening to anxiety is not a good thing to make any decisions in life. Sometimes we have to let that dust settle. And it's okay to wrestle for a while. But the thing about anxiety is it closes us in and makes us feel like we're alone. But you said that the sense of openness to God's voice, to community, and allow ourselves to step out of our own world, that's where we make the most difference. That's where we probably find the most fulfillment in our life. So I appreciate your insight and your wisdom.
Yeah, I think that the worst thing you can do is react to things. That's when you can do or say something that later you regret. So that's why, like you said, and even Bishop, the silence, to allow silence to really be that guide that can connect you with God and what He wants you to do, and be at peace in discovering what that call might be.